Hello everyone, welcome to Art 13131. Again, here we are in week 5. So we're way into the middle of the term, so halfway done through the term. We only have 11 weeks. The midterm presentation is due this week. It's due by Sunday night, midnight. I would like to have them all submitted, okay? Which gives you all week. And also I announced this and sent an email out last week. So the midterm is due. We're to talk about number 13. So we've had 13 assignments so far. As you can see, there's quite a number of assignments in this class. Several of you have not submitted a lot of work or any work. So at this point, I think you should probably either withdraw or contact me and communicate that you're having difficulties somehow, and I can help you in some way or another. Okay? So I either need to get with you to help you produce work and submit it, or you need to withdraw. And thank you for those who have submitted a lot of work and you're keeping up to date with this, keeping caught up and on schedule. I really appreciate that. It really helps. And you're going to be very successful in doing that. I want to mention that you should look at your grade. If you haven't received an A on an assignment, so you got a C or a B, that means I also gave suggestions and feedback for you to work on that assignment, or I asked for the image that you worked from, the model I call it, so that I can compare with what you're drawing and help you out even further. Part of the class is not just to make one attempt at the assignments, it's to develop skills to make that one attempt better. So you're actually learning something and developing your artistic skill and ability, okay? Your drawing abilities. So that's why I do give the feedback, and I'd ask you to work on them more, and I'm able to give you a better grade if you do put out that effort. Okay, so look at your grades. And then if you have something less than an A, then you have suggestions to read that I have given you on that Canvas submission page for each assignment. So look at those and start working on that, or I'll just figure you're just happy with the C you got or something, and you just want to get a C in the class, which, if that's the case, you're going to have to do all these assignments, every one of them, and get a C on it at least to get a C in the class. They're all graded equally, okay? If you're getting A's on assignments, typically you can miss 2 or 3 and still get an A in the class. Okay, so something to think about. All right, let's talk about the midterm presentation. I sent an email out about it. Here's the email. Midterm presentation is a 5-minute long or longer PowerPoint, Google Slides, or a video you produce. And you're going to be presenting on either an artist, an art style, some art movement perhaps, or art technique or method, or something in art history. Okay, it doesn't have to be a famous artist. It can be a lesser known artist, somebody you like, you want to present on. It can be a family member. But you're going to have to show images of that work. So it's at least 5 minutes long. So time yourself reading and viewing your presentation at a normal speed so you can make sure that it's at least 5 minutes long in a normal sense of reading and looking at the images. Of course, you don't want to spend a lot of time looking at the images because most people will not. They're going to look at them for probably 10, 15 seconds and then move on, maybe even less. So govern that. You can also make it longer. It doesn't have to be only 5 minutes, but if it's 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to probably say, hey, this is really short, and I'm going to mark you down for it. Make sure it's at least 5 or longer. It must include 5 or more images that describe and show examples of the subject. So if it's an artist, you're going to show examples of their work. If it's an art movement, you're going to show examples of that art movement. a technique or method, then you're going to show the process and what it takes, what the images are helping to just describe what the process was to do that technique and method. If it's something in art history, then you're going to talk about that. Okay, and show images to your best of your knowledge of that kind of an art history. It may be a little harder to do. Most students do not do an art history thing, but if you want to do it, that's great. It must include the five and more images. Okay, we talked about that. And also include text that is concise, to the point, informative, much like a short essay. So it's going to have an introduction, a body of knowledge, and a conclusion. Okay. And maybe you start off with a brief history of what you're talking about, if it's an artist or an art movement or some method where that art style came from or that art procedure is about and came from. You're going to show images and text about that. You're going to maybe have a little bit of background about whatever it is, the artist or the technique or the movement, where it came from, why it came about, um, process, challenges, successes maybe of the artist or the style or the movement had, and why you chose the subject to present on. And these are just the suggestions of what to talk about. If you produce a video where you're narrating, you won't have to put the text in. You can just talk. Okay, that's fine. It's like a class presentation. Maybe you have some bullet points and you talk about the bullet points. You don't have to have full text. If it's not narrated, then you're going to need more text to get your point across and understood. Okay, and that's very important because I'm going to grade on that. So consider that it's not just me viewing your presentation. It's just somebody that has never heard about your subject. You really want to be informative but concise. You don't want to take 20 minutes to do it, but 5, 10 minutes within that range, I think is good. It can be even a little longer than that, but I don't think it needs to be much longer than that. You don't have to have every aspect of the artist's life or anything. You can do just the main things. Just he came from here, he did this, he started drawing here, he started painting here, he did this, he was successful with this, and then possibly when they passed away or they're still around doing artwork. Okay, and why you chose to do it. Very important right here. Very important because a lot of students forget to put this in their presentation, even though I mentioned it several times. You need to do your own artwork about that relates to your subjects in some way or another. One piece, one artwork. It's not really a piece. When you say one piece, it's not accurate. There could be 5 pieces to one artwork. So, yeah, okay. It's actually one artwork, drawing or painting, or other. Uh, I'll give other examples of what you could be doing in the form of art you're presenting on. So you want to show one image of your artwork that relates to your subject. It's got to relate to your subject. So if you're doing an artist, maybe you're doing a copy of their work, or you're going to do a take on their work, your own take on impressionism or surrealism or modernism or postmodernism or cubism or pop art, conceptual art, performance art. You're going to have to do a little performance to get that done. Okay, so think about that when you're picking what you're going to present on. You need to produce your own artwork about it. And if you can do that, it might be something we do out of this class. So it doesn't have to be drawing and painting or ink work. It can be various art forms. Okay, so drawing, painting, sculpture, pen and ink, ceramics, woodwork, metalwork, glasswork, other options, cake art. costume art, makeup art, tattoo art, performance art, cartoon, anime. It can be any of those. Graffiti, forgot to put in here. Could be about graffiti art. But you're going to need to produce your own take on it or your own artwork, drawing or painting on that. Or if it's cake art, you're going to show that you do cake art, right? Don't present on cake art if you can't do a cake art or costume art and makeup art. You've got to be able to do those. Now, tattoo art, I would say you could make a drawing or painting of a tattoo you want to get, or maybe you actually have done that already and got the tattoo, then show an image of that. But you're going to show a history of tattoo and then what the process is on tattooing. Maybe ancient tattooing you want to focus in on or both, modern and ancient, vintage, or both. Okay? Doesn't have to be the complete tattoo story. It can be partial on one kind of tattoo or another kind of tattoo, or the whole shebang. Or maybe it's a certain culture, like Maori or Hawaiian or Asian, Japanese tattoo. They're all a little different, and they all talk about the same sort of things in a way in the culture, you know. So, social status and actual documentary of things and some of it's just artwork. All right, so include your own artwork, 5 images or more, in text, unless you're going to narrate in a video, and it's got to be 5 minute long or longer. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's go back here. um, since we do have the midterm presentation this week, do this week, there's only one assignment to draw. Okay. I will allow painting if you have painted before. If you figure you're fairly decent at painting, go ahead and try to paint. Don't try to paint if you're not good at it or you don't know how to do it, because it's not going to turn out very well probably. And I'd rather you use graphite and just stay with graphite, because most of the class is about graphite. We do work with ink down here, and in week 9 and week 10 we're going to use a little color, but I'll talk about that later. But just in case you do paint, you can paint this one. It's a landscape drawing or painting, okay? I'm going to show some images of that on Bing. Bing images, graphite drawings, lots of, now you can make this a seascape too. I'll show some images of that. A sea landscape. So you're going to maybe do a lighthouse with rocks and the beach and then some sea over here and sky. Very important. Contrast, light and darks. You'll see that the more successful drawings have a lot of contrast. They have light and dark. They have all the midtones in between. This is what we've been talking about since the beginning of the term. Okay, everything we're doing almost, within a few exceptions, is doing drawings with a lot of contrast, light and dark. Also, if something in your image is not white as paper, then don't leave it white as paper. I'm going to show you some examples here where they left the sky white as paper and it's really not. Typically, unless it's a blizzard or some really super lit up hazy sky, which still has some gray in it. Most of the time, sky is either blue or gray or some form of both with clouds or not. And so that's all a tone. That isn't white as paper, okay? So don't leave it white as paper. Put tone in. It's much more interesting anyway when you do, okay? This one has white as paper, but I can see that it's like a really bright image back there. In any case, you're going to work from an image and not from imagination. You're going to work from an image maybe you acquire here, or you went out and actually took a photo or something, or you have a photo of something out in nature that is a landscape or seascape, okay, or a little of both, like I said. And you're going to draw from that, and you're going to submit your image so that I can compare. Want to compare your contrast, your proportions, um, how water is reflected or agitated and moving with ripples, or it's very glassy and very reflective, like here. Kind of like glass. We were very reflective. Okay. This one's a little more agitated. Um, you can put a little subject matter in there like a boat or a bridge. Uh, houses are okay, but unless you know 2-point perspective and 1-point perspective, I would really study the image because anytime they show two sides of the building like this in a corner in front of you that's closest to you, it's a 2-point perspective. So you really need to study that. We're not going to do that till week 7. So kind of jumping the gun on that if you're going to put a building in there, but study your image. This isn't 2-point perspective. So this corner on the barn is the closest to you. Everything else going away from you will appear to be smaller or shorter. But basically what you do is you put a dot over here and a dot over here off the page, tape your page down, put a dot on the table over here, and then all the lines, like the floor lines and the roof lines, all go to the perspective point on either side. That makes the building look like it's getting shorter and smaller on that side and shorter and smaller on that side. That's it in a nutshell. You can go to YouTube and look up the videos that I'm going to show. Anyway, 2-point perspective, 1-point perspective. These two barns or houses or whatever these are in 2-point perspective. You can tell because they're showing two sides of the building, not one side. Okay, anything that's showing the one side is a 1-point perspective, and it's a little easier to draw actually, because you're not showing like this one. That's 1-point perspective because all you see is that side, straight toward you. You don't see the other two sides on either side because it's not twisted to you. Like this one's twisted. So that corner's the closest to you, and you see both these sides. That means you have to have a 2-point perspective. Point over here, and then all the lines go to those points on either side. You'll see diagrams and demonstration on YouTube if you look it up. If you really want to do that and put that in, then do that. Or just notice how the actual buildings in your image are actually drawn and copy that completely. Otherwise, just stay away from images of or drawing buildings if you're really not that confident in it. Okay? I'll leave that open to you. It's kind of a research with this one. Okay, lots of different images and some of the subject matter that's kind of cool to do is pathways and whatnot, but you have to realize the pathways appear to get shorter and closer together as they go away. That's because anything going away from you is appearing to get smaller and shorter, like trees. If this tree is really tall, well, these might be the same height, really, but if they're 25 feet away, they're going to appear to be shorter and smaller. Same with these are all kind of grouped up. There's not a lot of space in between them because they're further away and they're kind of grouped up in the hillside right here. You know, back here it's even more. Less detail, less contrast in some cases, although this has a lot of contrast, this one. This one is kind of a seascape, although they didn't shade the sky, which isn't accurate. That would have a tone. It's not white as paper. Cloud might be white with some grays in it, but the sky, it's either blue or gray or something like that, and a combination of that. And so you need to tone that up. I'm going to ask you, your sky, what is that, a blizzard? No. Okay. So it's not white as paper. All the trees tend to get smaller and thinner chunks as they go away from you. So all this in the background and over here and back here, and then they come up here. They are appearing to get larger and more thick and more detailed and more contrast. Everything back here is less contrast going away from you, and that's showing that it's in the distance. Atmospheric perspective is what that is. Atmospheric perspective allows for particles and dust and other things to get in the way of your image back there. So it appears to get a little diminished in tone. And you'll see this on mountain ranges as well. Okay. The sea has a little bit of tone, but it could use more because it's really reflecting the sky and it has agitated water or ripples in it that are going to make light and dark areas on the water. Mountains. And, a river going back. So the river tends to meet up and then kind of gets shorter and smaller as it winds around in here. Trees, maybe taller here and shorter back here because you're going to show the distance. Darker up here than right here on the mountain. So there's a contrast there going on. Lots of contrast, lights and darks in everything. The water has highlights, and then light and dark areas everywhere, showing the agitation of the water. And then the sky is very nicely shaded with a kind of a hazy sun here. Not a sun with a border line around it and little lines coming out. That's not accurate. That's not how it really looks. So don't do it like that. Do it as the image you're copying from. Whether you went out and took your own photo or you're using another image, use that image and copy from it. And notice all the contrast, that there's no border lines around anything. Because in real life, there's no border lines drawn around anything. I mean, typically this house here wouldn't have a line there and a line there and a line there. It's going to be that shade meets that shade, which meets the background shade, and that's the reality of it. So that's what you want to draw and how you want to draw. This is more accurate because that shade sort of ends without a line and then meets that over there. Well, don't make a liar out of me. Well, there's a slight shading line there, but it's not like a writing line. Okay. There's some lines here because those are planks going down. Okay. So that's what you want to be conscious of. Let's see. Okay, here. Let's show a little bit more images. Pathways. So you notice that the pathway is getting shorter and closer together as it goes away from you. So this distance here is shorter than this one. It's an illusion because here the pathway is probably the same as back here. If you walked back there, it would be the same. But here, when you're looking at it, it appears to get smaller. All the trees appear to get a little shorter and a little thinner. These ones are thicker than the ones as you go away. Okay, that's going to vary. That's a little thicker than that one, but it's certainly thinner than these ones up here. Also, notice your light source. Light source is coming from the left side here because all the left side of the trees is lit up and the right side isn't as much. So there's a gradual transition and little imperfections here where the root or the tree has it's not completely round like a pole, like a cement or a metal pole. It's wood, so it has imperfections and it has bark on it. And so there's going to be little places where the tone is in there to show that there's bark on there. And then it gradually changes into the darker side. There's a lot of contrast there and cast shadows on the ground. See these lines right? There are these cast shadow perceived shading lines. That's all from your cast shadow that you want to represent because that's all showing the perspective of where you are when you're drawing this. This one has a bunch of cast shadows from the branches. There are these little patches in here. They're being blocked by the branches and light is kind of peering through and showing up here and there. And it's a really cool way of doing things. Plus, the one side of the tree is all lit up a little bit on there too, even more than the cast, adding to that. And also the cast shadow. Cast shadows here on the ground and all that shadow from the branches blocking the sun. on the ground. Then up here, notice the sun rays coming through. It's all shading. A little darker there, a little lighter there, a little bit darker there, lighter there, darker up here. And there's sort of a very, very, very faint horse back here. Don't think it's a unicorn, but it might be. And it's sort of lit up on one side and not the other too, but it's very faint. All the trees are getting a little more diminished in tone as they go away from you. That's helping with your distance. So all that helps with the distance and the illusion of depth. Another one kind of looks a little white in the sky, but there's a lot of trees going on. I would still tone up a little bit in there. And then you got a lot more contrast with the trees. Look at the bark on the trees. All shading. Light and dark areas, little patches. Then the left side of these trees is the darker side, and the right side is the lighter side. Cast shadows going from the trees down onto the left across the pathway. Pathway is converging back here. It's shorter and closer together back here than it is here in the front. Pathway looks a little light to me. It looks like it's too white, almost like snow's on it. I would actually tone more of that up, maybe leaving a little bit of the highlights, but not very many. What are the highlights going for? What is that? It's brown or tan dirt. Why is it white? So you got to question that. And you can change, right? You can change the image slightly to your liking as you're drawing. Here's one with reflected light again, very glassy. Everything's an upside down image of the top view. This is the reality. This is the image reflected on the water. It's all upside down from that. Maybe you can diminish the tone a little bit in here to show it's a reflection. In this one, I don't think they're doing that as much. But the funny thing is, they put in shading on the water right in here, dark and light areas to show kind of the water's kind of rippling a little. It's still very glassy, but none in the sky. So that's incorrect. The sky would have a tone too. The sky would have the same tone as here. So they left that out somewhere, and I want to point that out. So in your images you're picking, if it's left out, put it in. Or pick another image that has tone and shading everywhere. Okay, there's the lighthouse idea. You have a landscape here. You have buildings. This is a two-point perspective building because you have two sides showing and a corner that's closest to you right here. That side's a little darker in tone than that side because the light is coming from the left. Same with the lighthouse. Light is coming from the left side is lit up a little. Gradually it changes into a darker tone on the right side, showing that it's round. Okay? Without that, it would be flat. You wouldn't know it was round. I mean, okay, lighthouses are round, but it's not really emphasizing that in the image if you don't shade it in. The sky shaded pretty nicely. You have lighter clouds and puffy areas, and then darker areas underneath and on the right side where the light isn't shining. So if light's shining in that cloud, all the right side is a little darker on the cloud than the left side. And that's how you show the shape of the cloud in there. And then all this sky that is perceived maybe just hazy or that's actually blue or gray because it's a gray day. That's got some tone in it. And then you got those birds flying around. Okay, let me see if I have another one. Well, you have that image. Let me go back to Bing, and I'll put in sea landscapes. And there's some. Well, you can actually put in this is sea landscape. You can work with this. Lots of contrast here. A little bit of the ocean there. Lots of shading in the sky. You can use any of these. These are nice. Puffy clouds are just light and dark areas. Using the side of your pencil and a smudging tool so that it's not scratchy. You don't want scratchy textures, because unless you're doing that in the mountainside or the bushes or something like that, you don't want scratchy textures. You want smooth textures, unless you're making scratchy texture for a reason. The sky and ground and a lot of this background stuff, mountains in the distance don't have a scratchy appearance. Neither does the water. Water's just light and dark areas. Maybe you have to erase out tone. If you put too much tone in, erase some out. Then go back in with more graphite in between, wherever it is. Okay? This is just a progression of light and dark areas. Dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, and you get kind of very highlighted back here. The sky is just the same thing. Okay? If you're looking for the light and dark areas in something, and you're putting them in with your graphite, it's going to appear like you're looking at for the most part. You just have to put the effort in. And don't just go, well, I'm just going to, and then, oh, here's my drawing. You have to take time to shade the places correctly where they are with the kind of shading tones that are accurate, light and dark and midtones in between wherever they are. And then you smudge out tone to make it smooth with a smudging tool, rag over your finger, sometimes just your finger, or a Q-tip, something like that will work. Okay. Okay, lastly, I'll just put lighthouse. And then you can see all kind of lighthouse with a little land on it. That makes a good landscape drawing. Look at that. Some light area here. You got some light area from the lighthouse. There's no border line on that. No border line right there, showing it's just that tone it meets that tone. All these tones meet each other without any line bordering it. That's real life. That's not some cartoon images. Lots of ideas here, okay? And it's just lights and darks, like I'm saying. Light's coming from this side a little bit, because this is a little lighter and this is a little darker over here. It kind of gradually changes with a little bit of imperfections here and there. Dark on that side, light on that side of each wave. Okay, so I think I've talked about this extensively. You can go in and find an image. If you want to paint and you have painted before, then do so. If you have not, I would stay away from it. It's probably not going to look all that great. Unless you really want to try it and you think it looks great, send it to me. But I may say, well, you need to really tone up this side or that side. Your proportions are off or whatever I have to say about it. I won't ask you to do it over or have to do it, fix your painting somehow to make it better. So if you think you can get there a little better than normal, if you have painted a lot, let's do that. Let me see what it looks like. I really enjoy paintings. But if you're working from a painting, you're going to do graphite. Let's say you're doing this. Then you have the red and the white. You're going to have to work in that in a gray tones, right? Okay. So it's going to be darker gray tones over here, and this side. This red is going to be darker gray tones than the white. And the top of it, it looks like it might be a brown or bronze or something. That's going to be a little darker than the white. But all the right side of this lighthouse is darker than the left. And there's a gradual transition in a lot of cases from light to dark with a midtone in between. Certainly right here, there's a midtone, midtone, midtone. Okay, all the way down. So look at that in your color. Sometimes you can take an image, a picture of an image, and change it on your phone to black and white, which is like not cheating, it's just a tool. But you could do that. Or you can just imagine that the lighter and darker reds are going to be lighter and darker grays. A red or blue or something, or green, purple is going to be a darker grays, versions of gray than white. Okay? And in everything, tone up the sky, tone up the ground, tone up the water, with only highlights being light as paper, white as paper. Certainly sky overall is not, ground is not, sand isn't even as totally white as paper. There's going to be a little difference here and there, okay? And only highlights, like this beam coming off the lighthouse right there. Okay, that might be white as paper. And over here, maybe there's a little bit of a sun kind of peering through a very bright area. Okay, but it's in contrast with all the other tones. So it makes it a successful drawing that way. If it was all light like that, the sky wouldn't even be um, discernible. All right, so check these out. Check out the other images I showed on here. You can delete uh, the sea and the landscape and show those images. Bing or Google Images will have plenty for you to look at. And otherwise, go out and take something of your own. Now here's one, just showing that, for a little difference. It does have white as paper because there's snow. But a lot of contrast in the trees, right? And the water. Water has a highlight down the middle of it, but it's not totally white right there. There's dark areas going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and light areas and midtones, and darker areas where the shadow areas are underneath the snow and the sides of the bank here, under this little bridge right here. But this is, okay, very white here, but it then has gray tones where the shadow areas are on the hill mounds, or the snow mounds, sorry. Very light back here, and it shows some very distant trees here that are very light and gray. All the trees in the foreground, more contrast and more detail. And certainly they're taller. So that's what you want to look for. The illusion of depth, converging lines. If you're putting a building or anything in there, 2-point perspective. You want to work with your light source. You want to have attention to your light source. Where's your light source coming from? What side is the shadow side? What side is the light side of your subject? Where the cast shadows are? Where anything, all this is, okay? You want to look at the images, keep an image, take a photo of it so you can submit that and I can compare it. I know I'm talking back and forth and over about something, but a lot of people need that because they don't get it first time I say it. All right, I think that's good. Now work on your presentation as well and get that to me by this coming Sunday. It's a whole week away, okay? If you're having difficulty or any questions, email me, communicate with me on anything, past or present assignments or the midterm. You have a question about the midterm, email. I check my email almost every day, if not every other day. All right. Okay, very good.